Welcome in. It is Bears Nation Podcast. It is Thursday, October 26th, and we are in week 8 of the NFL season, and we have a game to preview this week on Sunday Night Football for the Chicago Bears as they head to Los Angeles to take on Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and Justin Fields will still not be playing in this game. So I'll get that out of the way right away. Justin Fields, the update on him is the swelling has gone down, but his grip strength on the football still has not returned. And as such, he will not be playing in this game. So the Bagency will be getting its second career NFL start for the second week in a row. And so I have no idea what's going to happen in this game. Chargers are favored by more than a touchdown. And yeah, the Bears, a very stupid team. The Chargers, a horrendously stupid team. So I really have no idea what's going to happen. A couple of the Bears players getting healthier as the week goes on. It looks like Rashawn Johnson's going to play this week after he cleared concussion protocol. He practiced on Wednesday. Likely is going to practice again today. But the offensive line still remains up in the air with Nate Davis not practicing yesterday. We'll see what his injury designation is today, if he practices or not. A couple other guys, Eddie Jackson, didn't practice again. So couple guys getting healthier, couple guys still remain out, which is very dicey for this game, especially when it comes to someone like Eddie Jackson, when you're going up against a guy like Justin Herbert, who Kevin Lapka famously said could win an MVP and is better than Trevor Lawrence, which is just not true. And here we are. So I don't know, Kev, what are you feeling for this game? Because I really think this could go either way.
It's hard, I will say. Right, Bears, Chargers, this is a matchup of teams with the same amount of wins. Like if I told you that at this point of the season, after what we knew after 3 weeks, like we knew that this was possible at the start of the season, before the season, that, hey, Sunday Night Football versus the Chargers, this could be your chance to really make a statement against a good team, right? At that point, we thought the Bears could have been 5-3 because they had a softer, start to the schedule, and obviously things didn't pan out that way. So you look at this game, week 8, after like week 3, the Bears are 0-3, they're a dumpster fire. The Chargers, I believe at that point, were 1-2, but they were on the verge of figuring things out, have lost some close games like, they typically do. To say that at this point now, they'd have the same number of wins after week 3, I would have said you are effing crazy. It's just wild what the Chargers have not been able to do this year, and just their ineptitude at every level, right? With all the talent that they have across the roster. And this is classic Chargers, really good offense, terrible defense, just bad coaching decisions, can't put things together, talent all over the place, great players at every position group, and just can't put it together. So because of that, Jake, it sort of feels to me like at home, West Coast, for the Chargers, that is, it's like a get-right game for them. It's a perfect spot for them. But at the same time, like the Bears are entirely unpredictable as well. If you're the Chargers, you've had now, 4 days, and you're going to have, by the time the game comes around, 7 days to game plan for Tyson Bagent. The question that it boils down to for the Bears, specifically on offense, and we'll get to the defensive side of the ball in a little bit, is do you adjust the game plan, right? You know the limitations of Tyson Bagent. You're probably not comfortable asking him to throw the ball down the field. They attempted 0 passes beyond 20 yards in that game against the Raiders, right? So do you allow the Chargers to drop their safeties? Do you allow the Chargers to stack the box in clear running situations because you're not afraid of what Tyson Bagent can do against you down the field? Or do you say, F it, we're 2-5. We really have nothing to lose. Let's discover something in Tyson Bagent. We maybe know the floor is there. Let's see if the ceiling is there, yada, yada, yada. Let's deploy a different game plan, because we know if we trot out the same exact thing we trotted out against the Raiders, that's a very easy game plan to defend against if you have a week of preparation, and you are going to be stagnant on offense if that's the case. I don't have faith in the offense to do that. I don't have faith in Luke Getsy to do that because of what you said last week. Like, I went back and listened, and it really stuck with me. And we talked about the two quarterbacks, and we talked about, why this was so easy for them for Tyson Bagent, and why it's so difficult for them with Justin Fields, and how for you it was an indictment on the coaching staff. And I really think it stuck true when you were talking about the fact that they just aren't capable of designing a game plan around a player who's so versatile when literally every possible play that you could imagine in a playbook is open to you when Justin Fields is on the field. But when you have Tyson Bagent in there, not only is it just a limited amount of plays, it's also the plays that you happen to like to run the most, right? The screens and the quick outs and the short plays that get the ball out quick that they've wanted to do often in certain situations with Justin Fields. So I really don't know what to expect from the offense. They haven't said anything about, hey, we're going to open it up, because obviously you don't want to say that either, and give away your game plan. But what are you expecting from the offense? Are you expecting them to maybe give Tyson Bagent more of a chance downfield, or is that a dumb thing to do when you're still talking about a D2 quarterback who, very well knowingly was pulled at the end of the half for Nathan Peterman to throw the Hail Mary?
Yeah, I think that it depends on some other factors. I mentioned off the top the injury report. There's a lot of offensive linemen on it. As I said, Nate Davis did not practice yesterday with that ankle injury that he suffered in the Vikings game. Obviously, he didn't play against the Raiders. And on top of him, you also have Darnell Wright, who did not practice yesterday. He's dealing with a shoulder and toe injury. He's got 2 injuries listed on the injury report this week. You have Dan Feeney, who was a limited participant with a knee injury. I know Dan Feeney, everyone's like, Dan Feeney, whatever. But when you're this dinged up, guys are getting reps. And so you have Nate Davis and Darnell Wright. That's your right side of your offensive line there, who both did not practice yesterday. And then you have Braxton Jones, this is a positive. Braxton Jones was a limited participant, and he got the designation to return. So it looks like he might be on track to play on Sunday, returning from that neck injury that had put him on the IR before the season even started. That could be a boost. That could give you some versatility as far as maybe you put somebody else on the right side. I forget right now who's been starting at left tackle, but maybe you switch some things around. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that also depends. Maybe if Darnell Wright practices today or tomorrow, maybe he's limited today and full tomorrow, or 2 limited, and then he's back at right tackle. Maybe I'm not expecting Nate Davis to play. It doesn't seem like that's on track to happen. But if you get Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright back, then maybe you have a little bit more wiggle room to take some shots and open the playbook a little bit more. But if you're like, if worst case scenario, Wright and Davis don't play, Braxton Jones is back in a limited rotation, kind of like what we saw with Tevin Jenkins when he came back and he was kind of in a rotation. He played about half the snaps. Like, that's worst case scenario. And in that case, it's all backups and all these guys. You're probably signing someone from the practice squad at that point. In that instance, when you're going up against a Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack in a revenge spot, like, you can only do those quick passes. You're going to Tyson Bagent's going to have no time to breathe. And so you're going to be doing the same quick passes, quick slants, the screens, maybe try some trickery and run the hell out of the ball. Now, if Darnell Wright plays and Braxton Jones plays and, maybe Dan Feeney's available, I don't know, but then maybe you're more predisposed to, not saying you're going to completely change the game plan and make it all deep shots and make it all down the field, but you're more inclined, not predisposed, I said predisposed earlier, more inclined to take those shots, I think. So we'll see what happens in practice today when the injury report is released. We'll see what happens tomorrow and then go from there. But on a base level, it worked for you last week. You're going against a better defense this week. I just don't see how you can afford to get riskier and get more devil may care with the playbook.
The luxury that they had in the Raiders game was they didn't have to play from behind. And I saw a lot of people talking about how the script, or not the script, but the way that game played out was perfect for what the Bears wanted to do, because they kind of got the early lead and they're able to kind of control the clock and wind the clock down. And they got a couple takeaways, right? And take advantage of the takeaways. And they didn't give the ball away at all, and just be really smart with the football and play smart and grind it down. Like, that game, specifically because of the opponent and because of who was playing for the opponent, because Brian Hoyer was on the other side, you didn't have to worry about ever getting a quick strike. You didn't have to worry about, scoring, ever running a 2-minute drill at the end of the half to try to get back into the game because you were down. It was perfect for how, like, everything played out the way you needed to for how you want to run that game with the quarterback making his first career NFL start. You're not going to have that same luxury this week. You're going to have, the team that is 7th in the NFL in sacks defensively, right? They're going to get after you. They might force a takeaway. So in the event that happens, right, and you go down, you got to switch something up if you go down and you want to win this game. If you're going down 7-0 or you're going down, God forbid, 10 or 14, I think I'll say this, Jake. If the Bears go down 14-0, it's game over. Like,
Oh,
I just,
100%.
100%. Like, maybe that's not a crazy thing to say because, I mean, it shouldn't be, but you see so many of those lead changes in the NFL. And if you're up 14-0 in the first quarter, in most instances with most offenses with relative explosion, that's not an insurmountable lead to come back from. But with the way this offense is designed and the way they're going to run it, if you go, I'll say that if you go down 10-0, it's game over, unless you get lucky with a pick six or something. Like, yes, the Chargers are 2-4. Yes, the Chargers also have one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. People are going to look at their last game against the Chiefs, right? 31-17. That Chiefs team is just really good. We know that. That's a Chiefs team that stifled the Bears offense, and they put up 31. They got a couple takeawaways.
Super Bowl
that was also
favorite.
the first game back with Austin Eckler from injury, I believe. Or no, I think he was back in the Cowboys game. I take that back. But still getting Austin Eckler back into the mix. We know the Chargers offense is missing Mike Williams, but they still have really, really, really explosive players on the outside, like Quentin Johnson, who's been quiet as a rookie, but Keenan Allen, who's just a model of consistency at the receiver position, and even Joshua Palmer kind of filling in. And just there's always guys across that offense because of the way Kellen Moore runs it that are going to get open and going to explode. And I just don't think that if you have to be forced into a position where, hey, you're in a shooting match now with the Los Angeles Chargers, you ain't going to win that, especially in their place. And I know I'm not talking about home field advantage from a fan aspect. I'm just talking about you got to come across, the entire country. Anytime you go West Coast, it's not, a great thing. You'd obviously much rather have them coming across the country to visit you in a primetime spot for a 2-4 team that's going to want to make a statement. Like, you are not going to win the game if you go down big. So if I'm Eberflus, like, was I shocked that he deferred after winning the toss last week? Yes. That he didn't defer and took the ball. Yes, I was very shocked. But I understood his reasoning for doing it. And I think you kind of have to do the same thing this week because you got to try to build some sort of a lead. Because if they march right down the field, right, on that opening drive and say, you know what, we just lost, we're 2-4. We got to make an effing statement here on Sunday Night Football. We're going to go downfield. We're going to take shots. Hey, 7-0, chase that now. And then you go 3 and out the next possession because they know what you're doing. And then they go 14-0 on the next ensuing drive. Yeah, it's night for you on Sunday Night Football, and you're probably better off going to bed and not embarrassing yourself like we typically do on primetime, aside from that Thursday night game against the Commanders. So I just think that this opponent and this spot doesn't favor what the Bears likely would want to do. So to answer really the original question and conversation that we had, they're going to have to change the game plan. It's going to have to happen in this game, and if that's the case, you're going to find a lot about Tyson Bagent. Maybe he is up for the task. Maybe he does complete some passes beyond 20 yards. I don't know. We didn't see it last week. You really don't know what he's capable of down the field. Sure, his arm strength isn't anything to be desired, but you don't know, right? We have to see it.
He disagrees with that too. Like, he's been very.
Go ahead.
No, I don't think it's I don't think it's out of the question. Like, he's a young dude. Like, he's playing in the NFL. Might as well let him see what he's got. Like, I just have a hard time believing that Nathan Peterman has a stronger arm than Tyson Bagent. That Tyson Bagent can't throw it a Hail Mary to the end zone. Like, I just have a hard time believing that. So I don't know. I mean, whatever. I know some people are ragging on him for saying, "Oh, I have a cannon." I don't know. We haven't seen otherwise yet. So I'll take his word for it.
I mean, I'm not ragging on him. It's just, and it wasn't even
not you specifically, but I've seen people with that take that he can't throw the ball or he just got a weak arm. Says who? Because we saw him throw it so much last week.
I mean, I think it's just the comparison to, like, obviously most starting NFL quarterbacks. Like,
sure,
Brock Purdy's arm is significantly better than Tyson Bagent's. You know what I mean? And like, that's the main comparison. Justin Fields' arm completely, like, show them the play. You can show them multiple plays from this year, but show them the play from against Clemson in 2020 when he's just, getting hit from the 40-yard line on the other side of the 50 and throws a ball at Chris Olave trotting in the end zone. Like, it's just not comparable to most quarterbacks in the NFL, but that doesn't mean he can't produce down the field. And that's really the question. And hey, if you're the coaching staff and you want to really see what you have in Tyson Bagent, against an NFL defense, then you got to take those shots. If you want, if this is a discovery moment, and maybe they're taking the approach of, hey, let's be cautious with the kid. We don't want to throw the kid into the fire. He's still young. We know he had a little bit of success last week, but you don't want to diminish the dude's confidence. And hey, what a concept. What if you did that for Justin Fields about not diminishing confidence? But maybe they have that in the back of their mind. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And if that's the case, then they're not going to let him throw it down the field because, everyone talks about the moxie and the swagger of this guy, but we don't know how he's going to respond after making his first NFL takeaway. So far, for everything that he's that we know, he clearly didn't respond that well after he made a takeaway in the game.
Vikings game.
The Vikings game.
The Vikings game is like that's a tough spot to be put.
Tough spot.
You're not
100%.
Expecting to start. You're going against
100%.
a Vikings team that is actually like playing well now. Like that's not great.
Yeah, and that was not an ideal spot for him. So I'm not going to say like, oh, he doesn't know how to respond from takeaways or anything. But like when you're on prime time and the difference is this, I think, Jake, like Justin Fields in this organization, in this city, from the jump, I think maybe was aware of the expectations. And obviously we were all aware of the expectations. And when you talk about Tyson Bagent last week against the Raiders and in that second half against the Vikings, no expectations. You are an undrafted quarterback literally from Shepherd University that no one's heard of. You can't have expectations. All of a sudden, though, he comes out, he has one good game, and we're getting callers on the score saying, I think this Tyson Bagent kid could be as good as Joe Burrow, man. And then you hang up the fucking phone, and all of a sudden, your expectations go from here. And if you're looking, I got my hand about, at my chest to here. And now my hand is above my head. Like you have, because of one game and because of the dumb ass people in this city. Sometimes I love my people. I love Chicago, but there are some dumb, we'll say they're from the suburbs for the sake of saving Chicago here. They have set the expectation high, and he set the expectation high for himself. All of a sudden, there are people out there who believe that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's the expectation. You can't be a starting quarterback if you can't throw the ball down the field. He's probably aware of that, and that is going to put a heck of a lot more pressure on him. We talked about last week, like, oh my God, the pressure is entirely on the Raiders. There's no pressure on the Bears. Imagine if you lost to a D2 quarterback from Shepherd University. Well, now the pressure is on you a little bit, right? The pressure's on you. This is your chance to, like, we know that the leash isn't long here in Chicago. And although it is an undrafted rookie, if you play this game poorly, all of those people who said you could be Joe Burrow, who said you could be the starting quarterback in this league and be the future of this franchise, and those people are irrational and stupid, but for all those people that said that, like, it's going to get rolled back pretty damn quick if on a primetime spot you can't throw the ball down the field and you can't play the game well. So it's a pretty big moment and pressure spot for Tyson Bagent, especially when, Jake, the entirety of this pregame is going to be about his story. They're going to have interviews with his dad. Yeah. They're going to have interviews with him. The narrative for this game is going to be more about Tyson Bagent than it is going to be anything for the Chargers, because there's nothing to talk about with the Chargers, really. They're 2-4. They have all the talent. We've seen them on Sunday Night Football before, but the narrative is going to be around Tyson Bagent, and it's going to be a question of whether he can live up to the moment.
I will say that I do still think that there's some pressure on the Chargers, and maybe not even as a team, but Staley's this close to getting fired. Like, right. He's running out of room to stand on, and he's real close to getting fired. So even if there's not pressure on Herbert or the defense or whatever, pick your favorite player on the Chargers, I think Staley's feeling the pressure. And as such, then ipso facto, I think that the Chargers are feeling a little bit of pressure. They have to be, at least. So I do think that even if you're Tyson Bagent, I still think that this is mostly gravy for you, because everyone's still talking about you outside of, callers on the score, ESPN, whatever. Like, people with rational brains who break down football are still talking about you as the backup who is immediately getting benched as soon as Fields is ready. The second that Fields can hold and throw a football normally, you're back on the bench, buddy. That's how everyone is evaluating you. So I think, to me, if I'm Tyson Bagent, I'm like, all right, this is gravy still. I'm getting my second NFL start when everyone's expecting me to get 0 this year. And now, like, I just have to go play and prove my worth. Like, the pressure isn't on you because you're still just building right now. Like, yeah, you won a game, and yeah, you had a
Sure.
decent performance against the Raiders. So I wouldn't call that pressure though. It's just if the expectations were literally 0.0 going into the Raiders game, they're now at on a scale of 1 to 10, they're at a 1, a 2,
I
a
don't
2,
know.
a 2 at most, from like taking the fans out of it. Like take Joe Schmo on the street on Michigan Ave right
Sure.
now.
Okay.
Take that guy out of it. Your
Mhm.
coaches, people in the media like ourselves, people who the panel on Sunday Night Football, the expectations still can't be that high, especially when you talk about, like last week, what did he really do? There were no downfield shots. Yeah, he managed the game and he got you in, and that's awesome. I'm very happy for him, and not to take anything away from Tyson Bagent, but on a scale of 1 to 10, the pressure scale, it's got to be a 2 at most. And I struggle to even say a 2. Like, it was 0 last week. All right, you won a game, you had a decent performance, you led your team to victory at home. Great. Now you're on the road with a team that, I mean, the Chargers will tell you they're still in the playoff hunt if they can rip, because the Chargers have the talent to rip off 4, 5, 6 wins.
100%.
Everybody knows that, especially with their quarterback. But like, you're the Bears, you're Tyson Bagent, you're going in there, you're going to hostile territory for the first time, and everyone still expects you to immediately be stapled to the bench as soon as Fields is ready. And so I feel like if that's me, if that's you, the pressure's a 1, like a 1 or a 2 at most, because and he'll say, of course, Tyson Bagent's gonna say, oh, the pressure on myself, like the expectations that I have for myself are this sky high because I always want to perform the best. Yeah, of course, that's athlete speak. But for you, me, anybody else and the score at ESPN or on the panel on Sunday Night Football, nobody's expecting that much from you, dude. And again, that's not to take anything away from you, but that's just, you're still just a backup right now. All right, you go out and ball out and you throw for 250 yards and a couple touchdowns, you beat the Chargers on their home turf, then the pressure goes up, then the expectations go up, then the conversations start happening. But you still
Okay.
haven't done anything yet. Until that moment, this is all gravy. You're playing in the NFL, you're getting a start, you're just hanging out. Yeah, we get it. You have confidence in yourself.
You're
That's
just
great.
hanging
Show
out.
us. Like, you are. Up to this point, you've just been
I don't know if
hanging
you're
out.
just hanging
Maybe
out.
okay, maybe that's probably too far. But like you've been a backup. Like, you've just, like, nobody's been expecting anything from you other than scout team runs and practice runs and pregame. Like, up to this point, that it hasn't been much. So like, this is all just riding the wave for him right now. And until he has some kind of monster performance, then that's all it's going to be. And the pressures and the expectations going to be low.
Yeah. And I get that aspect of it. And you're probably right. If you take away what really has been the narrative in Chicago for a lot of dumb people, then yeah, I mean, in the building, right? We heard Matt Eberflus say, yeah, Justin's the starter. Like, it's not a question in the building, right? There's no quarterback controversy here, right? There's
Exactly.
none of that. It's just that, like, it's hard. Like, let's be honest here. When you talk about the likelihood of Tyson Bagent's career, like what his career is going to be, like, he's probably going to be a his odds are a Hall of Famer at the bank, right? Like Chase Daniel, you have an 11-year career, you play for 8 different teams, and you get a ton of fucking money. And guess what? You're generational wealth for your family, which is a ginormous win, obviously, for him. But
any of us would sign up for that in a heartbeat.
right. And 100%. But the leashes in the NFL are very short. And especially when you're a backup quarterback, it's really hard to stick around. And somehow, like, some way, guys do. Like, Nathan Peterman should not be in the league. And he's in the league. Like, odds are probably at this point still maybe decent that he sticks around. But like, if you string together a couple of bad games, like, you start to put your career in jeopardy, especially for what's expected of you as an undrafted rookie. Like, there's a reason 31 other teams passed on you. There's a reason that the Bears were able to pick you up, right? Like, it's still, I think, pressure because of that. Like, the odds and everything are against you. All of that makes sense when you talk about, hey, there's no pressure because no one's expecting anything. But also, you don't know what your NFL life is going to hold for you. And I know he said he's good. If he didn't play in the NFL, he'd, happily just CrossFit his life away. And I think he said he'd become a teacher at his middle school. But now that you play in the NFL, I don't think you want to CrossFit your life away and be a teacher in the middle school. It's a pretty good life to have, playing in the NFL, although you're getting banged up all the time. But it's still pressure from that aspect. But we'll see how. Look, all to be a wash. We have to see how he responds to it on Sunday. We could be completely surprised, and this could be a kid that struts out on the field on Sunday Night Football and owns the moment. We just don't know. I mean, 100%. We just don't know, and I think that's sort of the intriguing aspect of this game. It's like, oh, what if he does that? That'd be pretty freaking cool if he did. The players and the teammates and the coaches have talked about the little bit of swagger that he has, and just seeing a lot of football in his life, although it's been at a very low scale, that comes into play. So we'll see what he does, trying on the field on Sunday Night Football. I just think when you go back to this game plan, though, and you go back to what the Chargers defense presents to you, everyone's going to look at them and not know what to think, because in week 3, you have Khalil Mack, who gets 6 sacks in a game. And then you look at their defense, and they're 31st in total yards per game. They're 7th in total sacks, but they're good at this metric, and they're bad at this metric, and they're a good pass defense, and sometimes a bad run defense, and or a bad run defense, or a bad pass defense, sometimes a good run defense. It changes on a week-to-week basis. You never know. When I think you kind of look at how to combat what the Bears might present you if you're the Chargers, you got to go back to that Minnesota game. If you talk about sample size and you talk about, okay, what did the Bears do, not only in that Raiders game with Tyson Bagent, but in the Minnesota game, we know that the thing that destroyed Tyson Bagent in the Minnesota game and destroyed Justin Fields, again, there's nothing on Tyson Bagent, there was the blitz. I mean, the Bears had no idea how to counter the blitz. And then we know the Vikings blitz at the highest rate in the league by a large margin, 56%. But then you look at the Chargers, and everyone, I think, believes that the Chargers aren't a blitzing team. They still blitz 14th most in the NFL at a 26% rate. So if you are the Chargers defense, and I'm blanking on their defensive coordinator right now. I don't believe that Brandon Staley calls plays, but I could be corrected on that. Derek Ansley is defensive coordinator for the Chargers. If you are that defensive staff, you got to believe that the game plan for them is send the freaking dogs. I mean, if you have a game and a half of sample size, really, on Tyson Bagent, and in one game, you had a team that dropped back into coverage, didn't blitz, didn't get a lot of pressure on you, even with Max Crosby. And then the other game, although it was just a half, you're sending the dogs every play. You're forcing turnovers. He's throwing ducks in the air. He's fumbling the football. Then that's what I think they're going to do. So I think the Bears should come to expect that, and they should come to find a way to exploit that. And it's not an easy thing to do, especially when you have a rookie quarterback. But you got to believe, in my opinion, that that's what they're going to do. They have athletes across this roster for the Chargers. We kind of know that although they have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, and Bosa hasn't really been healthy. I believe Bosa missed, the first couple games of the season or something, and just came back a couple weeks ago. So he's still getting back into midseason form, and we know Khalil Mack is going to be out for blood. Is this his first revenge game?
Has to
I
be.
believe it has to be.
Because they didn't play the Chargers last year.
Right. So, and it's not like Khalil Mack has a vendetta against the Chicago Bears, but anytime you play your former team and you're as good as he is, he's going to want to make a statement. But nonetheless, this has been a Chargers front four, that hasn't gotten a significant amount of pressure. You're talking about an 18.6% pressure rate. That's good for like 24th in the NFL right now. So if they really want to find a way to create pressure and they're not satisfied with the way they're getting it from Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa and their guys in the middle, then you are going to have to send the dogs, and I think that's what they're going to do. Derwin James, safety blitz. They're going to run that a lot. They love to do that, and that's one of the most versatile safeties in the NFL. So the Bears are going to have to find a way to combat what the Chargers are going to present to you, especially from a blitz standpoint. I think that's going to be the game plan for them. And if that's the case, and I don't know if the Bears' run game is going to be what we think it is and what it was last week against the Las Vegas Raiders.
No, I agree. I think that, and especially, back to the Tyson Bagent thing, like, he's not as mobile as Justin Fields. So you might as well just take Khalil Mack off the leash and say, go get him. You were a guy who had a 6-sack game. And especially with how beat up this Bears offensive line is, even if Darnell Wright and Nate Davis and Braxton Jones all play, they're still all dealing with injuries or coming off injuries. So I think that there's going to be an opportunity. You talk about Joey Bosa and how he hasn't, has been ramping up, to use your word. No better spot than this if you're going against a bunch of backups on the offensive line or a bunch of hurt guys. So I think Tyson Bagent could be in for a rough day on the field, because I think that, and again, this goes back to Staley's feeling the pressure, and Staley wants to keep his job. You don't want to get fired. Nobody wants to get fired. So Staley He's trying to keep his job, try to get his
Pull out
team
all
back
the
into the
stops.
playoff race. One way to do that, tell your stars to go sack the quarterback a bunch of times. That'll do it, especially against, like I said, a beat up and or offensive line made of entirely backups. So I think that, and again, like Tyson Bagent, rooting for the best for him. Hope he becomes Chase Daniel or Taylor Heineke or becomes a starter somewhere else. But I think that this is going to be a rough go, no matter how quick you scheme the passes to be, no matter how much you run the ball. I think the Bears are in for a slog against this Chargers, especially. I mean, they're playmakers, they're stars.
And if Darnell Wright is out, there is that line should move. The line should move. And I know it's one player and it's a right tackle, and you'll never really see a line move because of that. But this has been a kid who has been the best offensive lineman across the unit on the Bears, has been just a force and at a premium position against one of the best edge rush duos in the NFL. Yeah, if you don't have Darnell Wright, and you guess you got to slide in Jatir Carter there. I mean, he's theoretically listed as the third right tackle because the second right tackle is Larry Borom, and that guy's playing left tackle. So you're talking about Jatir Carter playing right tackle, which he's never really done in the NFL. Good night, Chicago Bears. So yeah, if Darnell Wright misses the game, and again, we're recording this on Thursday before the injury report comes out. We don't know what his status is in practice here on Thursday, so we could just be, completely wrong. He might be active. We just don't know. But if he is out, you don't stand a chance. I think the more crucial or the more interesting aspect of this game for me, and real quick before we do that, I just wanted to say too, when you were talking about Brandon Staley being on the hot seat, like I never want to bet against a team where the coach is on the hot seat. Like, I think there's a lot of people who look at scenarios like that and they're like, oh, he's going to get fired. Like, bet against him. Come on. Like, he's already on his way out. Just bet against him. He's also the guy coaching for his life right now. He's coaching for his career. He has everything on the line. Desperation mode. He's going to pull out all of the stops on Sunday Night Football. And maybe they're not all the right stops, but he's going to pull them out. He's going to do whatever he can. He's going to try. That's why, like, there was a lot of people who were fading the Bears on Thursday Night Football against the Commanders because everyone's like, hey, if the Bears lose this game in a primetime spot, Matt Eberflus could get fired. And I was like, although I bet against the Bears, or I picked against the Bears, I didn't bet against them with my actual money. I picked against them in the show. I was like, I am not touching the Commanders. I'm not touching the Bears or anyone against the Bears for the rest of the year because you are every game, you're Matt Eberflus coaching for your career. And everyone's like, oh, the Bears are tanking. The Bears are not tanking. The Bears will never tank this year because you already have the pick from Carolina, and Matt Eberflus can't afford for that to happen. So I see a lot of people who are like, hey, pick against the Bears and Survivor, pick against the Bears and Survivor. You don't, like, I'm picking against the Bears and Survivor this week, and we'll get to that later. But you are not going to want to do that with teams that are, in desperation mode, and that's where the Chargers are. The more interesting aspect of this game for me, Jake, is really what the Bears are going to do defensively. You're finally really healthy. You have the whole secondary back. Kyler Gordon looked, good. He did that super cool Spider-Man backflip at the beginning of the game last week. Cool. Jaquan Brisker missed practice with an injury on Wednesday, but illness on Wednesday, but is probably expected to play unless it's a serious illness. You have a healthy secondary. You have Tremaine Edmonds, who's, 2 interceptions in back-to-back games, looking more like the guy that you paid for. TJ Edwards, and the rush defense has been unbelievable. Top 5 in the NFL in rush yards per game allowed. Just the efficiency up there has been great. Jalen Johnson, 3rd in the NFL and coverage and passer rating, winning coverage. I think he's allowing a 22.2 passer rating when targeted. Like, just unbelievable numbers for a guy that should deserve a contract extension. We'll find out before Tuesday. But the more interesting aspect of this game for me is really how the defense plays. This defense has played really, really well in the past couple of weeks. And this is a Chargers offense that's really explosive with a lot of really good playmakers, and they're extremely hard to stop. I'm interested to see how the defense, comes up with the challenge and how they, react to what this Chargers offense will provide to you, because they're just a really good offense in a lot of ways, and they're going to finally have a full strength Austin Eckler. Josh Palmer missed practice with an injury. We don't know if he'll play, but Keenan Allen can get open on any given moment, and they're going to get him open. Maybe this could be the breakout game for Quentin Johnston if Josh Palmer is out. We'll see, but I'm more intrigued, honestly, Jake, by what this defense will do against the Chargers offense versus what the Bears offense will do against the Chargers defense. Because they're boring. The Bears offense is boring to watch. I'm sorry. Everyone's like, oh, what a great, they won last week. It was boring last week. I was snooze fest, although they won.
Yeah, that game was bored you to tears last week. That's for sure. But no, I agree. This defense is seemingly on the upward track. We'll see if Jalen Johnson puts together yet another strong performance to try and secure that contract. I mean, you got to think if this defense plays well and Jalen Johnson has another game, that he's getting a contract on Monday. You have to think like against Justin Herbert and he plays
Yeah.
well, like have to, or he gets traded. So we'll see. But no, I agree. A good opportunity. I mean, you played the Raiders, who stink, and you played the Vikings, who were without Justin Jefferson, and then Jordan Addison had his coming out party this past week. But I think that it's an opportunity now, a real test for the defense. Yeah, you played good the last 2 weeks, but okay, now here's Justin Herbert and an actual offense with a couple of really high level playmakers. So we'll see. I agree that it's an opportunity for the defense to show something, but I mean, there's just as likely a possibility that they just get absolutely diced, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a more likely possibility. Like again, it's also the weird thing about the NFL is, and I've really noticed this, and and a lot of it is because of this this narrative that's been going around about. I don't know if you've seen this, but like the most hyped team in the NFL has lost the next week, like the following week. Like
Wow.
the number one team in the NFL that everyone's hyping up, like it happened in week 6 when the Niners and the Eagles all lost at 5-0, right?
Yep.
And then this past week it was the Lions. Everyone's like, oh, the Lions could be the best team in the NFL. Just get absolutely trounced by the Ravens. Like, and what you come to learn, especially this year, is like don't overreact to really good performances and don't underreact to really bad performances and the way that teams have played. And right now, it seems like everybody is counting out the Chargers, saying they're just a bad team. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're incapable of doing anything, beyond January this year. Everyone's going to bet against them. Maybe I don't know. I think it's a spot where the Chargers could come out and say, "F you, here's who we are," and just ball out. So that could be a good segue into our bold predictions and our predictions for the game. Let's do bold predictions. Are we like we're not going to predict the quarterback until
No, I think
Fields
we
comes
should.
back?
Now,
We
now that
should.
we have
Okay.
now that we have a game under our belt and we know I think we should.
Let's start there
Um,
then. I'll start with you. Predict
all right, you
Tyson
want me to
Bagent's stat
start?
line. I want you to
Oh
start.
man. God, I just have a real tough time figuring out what this is going to be. What? All right, let's start here. What was the line? What was the final line for him last week?
162 yards, I believe, 1 touchdown and
Something like
21
that.
for 29.
All right, 162 yards, 1 touchdown. All right, I'm going to say that for Tyson Bagent, it's going to be 18 for 25, 189 yards, and 1 touchdown.
No turnovers?
1 interception.
Okay. Okay. So 18 for 25, 180 something yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. All right. All right. That's so pretty similar to what we saw last week and pretty much like, what he was probably on pace for
I'm not
against Minnesota.
expecting this to go to like take an evolutionary turn as far as the offense goes.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think they're going to pass the ball much at all at this game.
Yeah.
Much at all. I think he's 15 for 23, 157 yards, no touchdowns. Or actually, I'll give him 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Like and again, this is gonna sound bad because it feels like I'm like rooting against Bagent here. I just like show me. You know what I mean? Show me.
Right.
Like we
Yeah,
talked
sure.
about
I mean,
what
we have no reason to believe that he can throw for 300 yards and have a crazy stat line. We have no reason to believe that right now. Right now,
right.
as of this moment.
Right now. And I just like, is it more likely that he gets, I wouldn't say exposed, but that it's a fall back to earth moment for him? Or is it
Sure.
more likely that he blows it out of the water? Like, would you rather roll with my stat line really either of our stat lines?
Or similar,
Or would you rather roll with 300 yards, 3 touchdowns? You know what I mean? Like, it's a
like if you had to
no-brainer.
bet on one, yeah.
If you had to
right.
bet on one,
Right.
you'd probably bet on that. So, hey, look, and look, obviously, I hope he comes out with a lot of swagger, a lot of moxie.
Yeah, would love to be wrong.
And this is the like here I am. Yeah, I am Tyson Bagent. And guess what? I've arrived and it's Sunday Night Football and I'm ready to freaking go. Like, we are rooting for the kid,
Sure.
obviously, here on this
Yeah.
podcast. It's just like, it's so hard to evaluate, so hard to navigate, because not only have we not seen a lot from him, we also haven't seen a situation like this in the NFL. Like, there's a
Yeah.
reason this story is making its way nationally. And the reason why it's going to be the top national story on Sunday because of Sunday Night Football is like, there's never really been a D2 quarterback who's been in this position for a major team like this and really made it this far after what he's accomplished in college and just everything that he's been through. So not only do we have low sample size, we also just have never seen a career track like this, in the NFL. So that makes it really, really hard, because Jake, even like if I were to tell you that, hey, Tyson Bagent was undrafted, but he played his football at Penn State. He was a 4-star recruit out of high school. Like, that completely changes the narrative. And you can argue whether that's fair or not, but it just does, because oh, he has the tools, he has the traits, he has just something went wrong in college, something went wrong in the draft process. It was just crazy that he went undrafted, or crazy that he was selected this late, kind of with Brock Purdy and Tom Brady and all those things. This is a completely different scenario. It makes it really hard to navigate. And we are just all saying, hey, kid, prove it. And I hope he does. So that's where we are. Let's go into our bold predictions. What you got?
I'm going to go to something that we talked about before. Tyler Scott continues to be more integrated into the game plan, especially with Tyson Bagent. Tyler Scott, the last couple weeks, 7 targets, 4 catches, a couple of rush attempts over the last couple of weeks as well, last couple of games. I think that continues. I think they're trying to get him some run, try to see what they have in him. I'm going to say that Tyler Scott, I don't think he's going to have the biggest stat line, but I think he gets a touchdown. It seems like there's some more integration of him into this offense. So I will say that Tyler Scott, the rookie, has his first career touchdown from Tyson Bagent.
And look, I mean, the unfortunate reality of that is that's your Darnell Mooney replacement, and most
Yep.
likely. I mean, we don't know. Look, I love Darnell Mooney,
Yep.
obviously, right? Like that. I think Darnell Mooney's a great player. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL for a decent amount of time. For some reason, they have taken a major step backwards with his role in the offense this year for
Yeah.
no reason whatsoever. Like we reminded you last week, this is a 1,000-yard receiver at one point in the NFL. This is a guy who can make plays. Unfortunately, I think he's going to get traded before the deadline. There's a lot of wide receiver needy teams in the NFL who are playoff contenders, and the offense hasn't been great across the NFL this year in general. And I think there's going to be a team that's going to be willing to give up something worthy for you for Darnell Mooney. So in that case, you're kind of looking at like pretty much the same player in Tyler Scott. Late round pick, sort of a smaller school, but not too small, right? Can be a defense on the field, but can also be sort of your gadget guy on offense and get yards after the catch and all these things. So I'm with you on that. I'm with you on Tyler Scott. I'm concerned, or I was concerned last week about how they used Cole Kmet. Well, I don't know why I was concerned, because, they didn't use him. He had 0 receptions for 0 yards. Not only that, he had 0 targets. You cannot eliminate Cole Kmet from this offense. Please do not eliminate Cole Kmet from this offense. I think they may try to get him going a little bit, especially with a blitz-heavy team. You might be able to get him to leak out on a couple plays and be open in the flat. I think Cole Kmet finds the end zone in this game. I said Tyson Bagent has 1 passing touchdown. I think the recipient of that touchdown will be Cole Kmet. Do you have any defensive bold predictions for us here, or do you think they just get absolutely torched?
I don't know if they get torched, but just especially with Brisker, his status up in the air, it's hard to have defensive bold predictions. I think
Yeah.
it's more likely than not that they just get eaten up by Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
So
I don't really have much bold in this game either. I already nailed the Tremaine Edmonds interception.
famously, yes.
I don't even know what I had last week. Did you write down what my defensive prediction was last week? I'm not even sure if I had one
Your
last week either.
prediction was a special teams touchdown.
Oh yeah. Well, he is taking the ball out more, so there's a
Oh,
little bit of merit and logic behind it. But yeah, I don't know if he's finding the end zone. Defensive bold prediction. How about this? This is so stupid. Kyler Gordon gets a tackle for loss. I don't know. Kyler Gordon gets a sack. That's what I do. Corner blitz. Kyler Gordon sack off the edge on a corner blitz. That's my bold prediction. Jake, it's time to predict the game. Sunday Night Football, first and only time this year. Shocking, Jake. I was surprised this did not get flexed. I mean, there are good
Yeah.
games on the slate this week.
Well, I mean, it's like you said, the Bagent story. People like that's people want like
Yeah.
to highlight that. That's gonna draw some
Yeah.
people in.
It's going to draw some people in, and then they're going to see 4 checkdowns, and they're going to say, all right, I'll go watch, Dancing with the Stars or whatever. I don't know. But Sunday Night Football, Bears Chargers in Los Angeles. Who do you got?
I just struggle to see this going well for the Bears. There's a part of me that thinks just because it's the Bears and they're so dumb that they're just going to win this game, especially because Staley's a moron. So there is a part of me that thinks that the Bears do win this game in some weird, bizarre get up fashion. But my rational brain tells me that it's going to be the Chargers, that you just can't stop Herbert, that Staley, like you said, desperation, coaching for his job, coaching for his career. I think there's more merit to that. I think the Bears had their moment. They had their pop with Tyson Bagent. All right, won his first career start. Everybody's feeling good. I think that does fall back to earth. I think reality gives them a little hip check this week. So I'm going to say that the Chargers win this game 27-13.
Yeah. Not only is it Brandon Staley, not only is it the Chargers as a whole, but it's Justin Herbert, man. I mean, the narrative around Justin Herbert the past couple of weeks has been maybe he's not as good as we thought.
Yeah, true.
Maybe he's regressing. All of this, like, this is one of the top passers in the NFL, a guy that I picked to win MVP this year. And he hasn't looked like that thus far. He has his moments, as he always does. He's got one of the strongest arms and one of the most talented, skill sets as a quarterback, as a passer in the NFL. But he hasn't really put it together. He's been making mistakes. He's been dealing with the thumb injury the past couple of weeks, which I think has, played a factor. But he's kind of, pretty much at the point where he's fully healed from that. So it's hard to say whether that'll really play a role. I just think that this is like a perfect spot for the Chargers and a terrible spot for the Bears. Like, I'm not surprised that the line is what it is, but I'm taking the spread on the Chargers. I just don't see a way the Bears come out in this game and like there's a formula for them to win against what the Chargers are going to do in desperation mode. So I think you lose 31-13. I think it's, a typical Bears primetime game where you kind of just got to turn it off and it's kind of embarrassing. I just don't really have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to use what they did against the Raiders and use it against the Chargers and make it work. And the Chargers should be cognizant of that. They should be aware of that. And I got to ask you this. I mean, from a moral standpoint, I'm picking against the Bears in Survivor. So I'm in week 8 of Survivor. And for those who don't know, for those listening who don't really gamble or do anything like that, Survivor is you pick a different team of the in the NFL each week to win. And you try to go through all 18 weeks of the year and try to make it all the way through. And the winner at the end, after picking 18 different teams, wins a grand prize, yada, yada, yada. I'm in Joe Ostrowski's pool. If you know him, works for, BetQL, and we, good friends of Jake. And I'm in week 8. It's a really hard slate this week. There's not a lot of good games to pick. There is a lot of good games to pick, but I like to save my good teams for, later in the year. I am picking the Chargers in Survivor. I don't know what I'm going to do morally. So I do this with a buddy, and we've come together that like we got to kind of put our love for the team aside, and we got to like. There's lots of. I'm not gonna. There's a lot of money on the line here, Jake.
Yeah.
Especially, what do I do? How do I watch the game?
You root for the Survivor pick.
So essentially I root against the Bears.
Yeah.
That's so hard to do.
Yeah, I know, but
I don't know if I can do it. The other way is like, this is a win-win for me. Like, this is smart for me more because if the Bears win,
out of here.
The Bears win. If they lose, I will keep going in Survivor. So
yeah, but one is much better than the other.
Yeah, one is much better because
the Bears aren't going to the playoffs. Bears aren't winning the Super Bowl. Bears aren't doing shit this year. You could go to the end of this pool. So
a win also prevents you from getting Marvin Harrison Jr. Probably. And that guy is so good.
We are all in agreement. We're halfway through the season almost. Losses are better than wins right now because you're a bad team. And also, if you want Matty Eberflus gone, got to lose some games.
A moral dilemma for me, but we are both taking the Los Angeles Chargers by more than 2 touchdowns. So, or more than a touchdown and 3 points because you have them 20. All right, you just 27-13, right?
Yes.
27-13? Yeah, so 2 touchdowns or more. So, That's where we are, Jake. Let's see. Sunday Night Football. Bears on primetime. Yay. Oh,
yeah, can't wait. Surely that will be a very close game that goes to the wire. Anyway, but that's it. We're aligned this week once again for the first time in a couple weeks. But for myself, for Kevin, this has been Bears Nation Podcast. We'll be back on Monday to break down whatever this fiasco is going to be and talk some more about Tyson Bagent. Woo! And we'll see if Kevin's still alive in Survivor. But until then, for myself, for Kevin, this has been Bears Nation Pod. We will see you all on Monday. And until then, bear down.